Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Ask a train engineer. Now, ask an electrical engineer. It's me, LadyAda. I'm the engineer. With me, Mr. LadyAda on camera control. We just took a train here, a train from the past into the future.
We'll be talking about that in the show.
We got an exciting show for tonight. We're broadcasting live, as always, from the Adafruit headquarters. This is where we do all of our kitting, testing, shipping, manufacturing, coding, videoing, and shipping, whatever I just said, multiply that.
We do a bunch of things.
All the time. And that's why we're a little out of it. Everyone's home right now because it's just me and Mr. LadyAda. We've got a jam-packed show for you for the next hour. You're going to hear about all the latest news, updates, new products, videos, tutorials, LED cats, and more. Mr. LadyAda, tell them what's on tonight's show.
All right. On tonight's show, the code is uncased, 10% off in the Adafruit store all the way up to 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, or when I remember to turn the code off. Get to 10% off in the store, and you also get free stuff as you shop on the site. We do a live series of shows, including Show and Tell. We'll talk about that, who's on the Show and Tell, and what they shared, and more. Time travel, look around, world makers, hackers, artists, and engineers, and more. RetroTech, we'll be talking about that train ride we took. From the Mailbag, we'll read your letters that you send us. A job from the Adafruit Jobs Board, jobs.adafruit.com. Post your skills to pay the bills, or if you're a company, hire cool, amazing people in the community to do the projects you want to get done, and more. We have some factory footage, we call advanced manufacturing, made here in New York City. We got a 3D printing speed-up video. We've got Ion MPI. This week it's from Worth Electronic. And we've got new products, lots of stuff this week, some top secret. We answer your questions. We do that on Discord. Remember, questions, Discord, adafruit.it/Discord or discord.gg/Adafruit.
It's free.
That's where we do the questions. Join all 34,000 of us there, and the party still goes on even after the show's over because people hang out and chat and share and do all that stuff and more. All that and more on, you guessed it,
Dun, dun, dun.
Ask an Engineer. Okay, well, let's pay some bills real quick. Don't forget, the code is uncased. It'll all make sense soon. And when you purchase things...
Or uncased.
Yeah. Uncased. Yeah, could be that too.
Yeah.
LadyAda, when they buy stuff, though, will they get free stuff?
That's right. We have freebies, and we changed them out. For now, if you order from the Adafruit store, adafruit.com, you get $99 or more a free Permaproto half-size breadboard. We love to give these away as freebies because they're so handy. Just keep it in your drawer, and believe me, you'll use it soon enough. $149 or more, you get a free KB2040. It's an RP2040 board that's Pro Micro Pinout compatible. It has a STEMMA QT port. It's got 8 megabytes of flash, USB-C, castellated pads, and it's designed for keyboards. But you know what? You can use it for anything, and it comes in a cool pink color. And $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping in the continental United States.
Okay, cool. And reminder, there's more things in addition to Raspberry Pi now because the part shortage continues on. Make sure you make an account on adafruit.com. You verify your email and you do two-factor authentication. That's good security for you. You should do that on every website. And if the website doesn't offer that, you should drop them an email. And if they say, well, we're just an electronic site, say, well, I know an electronic site, Adafruit, they're doing it. But it also helps us make sure that we can fairly get Raspberry Pis, specifically right now, but there's also Teensies that are in that limit to the most people. So I'm going to skip around this week, and we're going to do Mailbag, because this Mailbag is yet another one that has something to do with this shortage. Before I do the Mailbag, though, for the Raspberry Pi orders in particular, there is a pretty big, I'd say, group of people, but they have bots, but there's people. Someone made the bots.
Half bot,
And-
half person.
Yeah, and
Robobot.
it's working. Like we're able to not have people buy all the Raspberry Pis, make tons of fake accounts, and get them, and then put them on eBay and send them for $300. And they're starting to move on. That's good. They still try, but we've done a really good job. And the folks who do get them, they let people know on Twitter, like, oh, I got one. I've been waiting for like 2 months, and I was able to get one. So that's really helpful. And then there's a couple folks that are really cranky and crummy because they're like, well, I need 10 Raspberry Pis for my project. It's like, well, right now,
find another project.
right now might not be the best time for a project that needs 10 Raspberry Pis. And they're like, well, I've already got one. I'm going to get the other 9, and they're not so nice to our team when they email. So anyways.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So anywho, let's do mailbag, because this mailbag happens to be a mailbag about the Raspberry Pi stuff. So
Okay.
I remembered this to put the song in this week
Great.
too. Yeah. It's right over here. Yeah, we changed screens this
That's
week.
okay.
Giant screen. It's like
It's so big.
It's like there's a
I
lot
know.
going on here
It's
today.
all screen.
Letters, we get letters, we get tweets, and we get emails.
Okay, this week's mailbag. This is from William. It's a little long, so that's why I want to get to it right away.
'Kay.
Hey, nothing that requires a response. Just wanted to give you folks positive feedback. I've been reading about the Raspberry Pi shortage and saw that you folks are going out of your way to ensure scalpers don't pick up multiple Pis. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you. In a time where profits always seem to come before customers, it's become a rarity to see something like this in action. I have several friends who have worked for Orange Coffee Roasters. That's a coffee place in New York. Several whom went to work at Adafruit, and I've heard nothing but good things about your company and how it treats its workers, and it's clear that you folks treat your customers the same way. Anyways, having worked in customer service for a while, I know how rare it's actually to hear something good from a customer. Yeah. So I wanted to take a minute and share what an awesome company you are in hopes that it makes someone's day a little better. It did. Little decisions like this make all the difference in the world, and I'm happy to encounter a company that actually cares.
Yay.
Thank you, William, because we spent a lot of time on all this stuff, and it's
We get
been-
letters.
Yeah.
We get faxes. They complain
Yeah.
we don't sell them 30 Raspberry Pis.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the Better Business Bureau, they left a voicemail message for me. So some person doesn't like that they got caught, selling Raspberry Pis on eBay, and we're not allowing them to buy stuff in the store. And they think opening up a Better Business Bureau complaint will solve that, which it won't.
It's not discrimination, folks. I know you think it is, but it's not.
Yeah, they were selling Raspberry Pis on eBay for like $300, and we told them don't do that.
They did it once,
We
but you
told
can't
them
do
don't
it
do
twice.
that, and so we're not allowing them to buy Raspberry Pis. So, anyways, so I like this letter. This makes up for that one. So thank you so much, William.
Thank
All
you,
right,
William.
So let's talk about our live series shows.
We just did one.
Yeah, we just did one. We do a bunch of live shows. So we just finished Show and Tell. Show and Tell was fun this week.
Cool art.
Kevin from DigiKey showed this like immersive,
Cyber.
almost VR looking thing, and it's the Innovation Hub from DigiKey. I really like this, and I don't know how long they've been working on it, but I think their timing is really good because people are starting to want different experiences online because the web's kind of trash. And I mean that maybe in a good way. Like, most of the web, it's really hard to find stuff now. And that just means there's more opportunities for all of us to have special experiences on our websites. So, if you type something in Google, like it's really hard to find the results. There's just like a lot of stuff going on that's
Yeah.
not the results you're looking for. So, the idea is you would go to the DigiKey Innovation Hub on this the site experience that they have, and you'd be able to spend focused time and explore these things. So I really like this idea. I hope I get to try it out soon. And I think this is the first time it's been displayed to the public. And then Scott came on and showed some neat stuff at CircuitPython.
That's right.
And then Rachel came on, and Rachel had this really neat LED backing. It's our matrix panel,
Matrix panel,
with
yeah.
with Legos in front of it. And my prediction, and I said this on there, Lego's totally going to do an LED panel that you put Legos on top of it, and you like do designs and have stuff behind it. Like they watch our show and they look at our site, and I know for sure Lego does. So I think they get really good ideas from the maker community, as they should, because that's why we're here. We all want to share ideas. And I think that might be like a product one day where you would have a panel behind the Legos and be able to make a really cool immersive stuff with Legos in front of it. And then John came by and showed this cool garage door detector. That was neat. So anyways, you can check that out on YouTube or any social media place where we post and host videos. On Sundays, we do Desk of LadyAda.
That's right.
And we have two parts. The first one was...
Well, we talked a little bit about how we went on this train, which we'll show a lot more photos and videos of. And then it was a sample Sunday, so I went through a whole bunch of samples that I got. I'm trying to clear out my massive pile of samples. We got some Elkai solder kits. We've got these cool hex wrenches. We've got laptop battery adapter. We got some clear RGB encoders. And everyone agreed that these were good samples, and so I'm going to order them.
Okay. And then... we do the Great Search, and this is where LadyAda uses her powers of engineering and smarts and searching the digikey.com site to find the parts that she needs, or you need, or someone in the community says, hey, I need help finding this. What was the part this week?
Okay, so this week, we had just stocked this I2C capable sonar sensor, and I like it, but it doesn't work so happily on multiple I2C device chains. And so I thought, I wonder if I could make my own ultrasonic sensor. And so I Googled around a little bit. I found a couple tutorials, and people had taken apart and done reverse engineering of sonar. I didn't see a lot of people who'd made their own sonars. Usually people tend to use off-the-shelf modules. But I determined that it should be possible to do with a single transceiver. And so I went to DigiKey and located a CUI 40 kilohertz ultrasonic transceiver module that I ordered, and I just got them today. And they're cute and adorable, and I'm going to try them out as a distance sensor, see if it works.
Okay. And then JP was off this week for JP's product pick of the week, so we'll be resuming that next week. Same thing goes for JP's workshop this week, so that'll be coming up next week. Also, Fridays, we do Deep Dive, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern, with Tim, and this is where you can get a good overview of all the things that go into the deep parts of CircuitPython. So if you like the movie Abyss and you want to breathe water, that special suit that they had.
Maybe he's fun. Maybe isn't Sphere also underwater?
Sphere was underwater, but I feel like in Abyss, he had to stop this bomb from going off. Because the guy, anyways, it's a long story. Yeah. It's a long story, but it was deep. It was so deep he had to have this special suit. So that's what Tim's like. Tim's like the guy that's going to save the aliens.
Oh, he's got the big
and he's breathing and he's breathing in
BioShock.
And he's breathing in oxygenated water.
Okay.
That's what the show's like.
Yeah, but code.
But CircuitPython. Okay, time travel. Time travel this week, I'll do the weekly reminder. We're still hopefully doing AdaBox Spring Edition. If you didn't get your AdaBox Winter Edition, it's because there was a part shortage. So we're still trying to get these out. Don't worry, we don't charge the cards until we ship it, so you don't have to worry about that.
It's a part shortage.
Yeah, all right. So let's do some retro. Yeah, let's do some RetroTech. So this week's RetroTech is really, really retro.
But it is electronic.
It is. So the Transit Museum in New York does historic rides, nostalgia rides, but they haven't been able to do it for a couple of years because of COVID. So basically, there is a really old train station inside of New York subway system, and they will let you book tickets to ride a 100-year-old subway train on the regular subway route. And so we went to it. This was Explorer South Ferry Station. And a couple little facts about this. 1905, Old South Ferry Station contains a terracotta relief artwork designed by original subway architects. It was built as a loop station so the trains could turn around and head back. It was built for 5 cars. It was decommissioned in 2009 when the new South Ferry Station opened. And then it had to be reopened when Sandy hit because the other station got closed. And then the low V is the low voltage train, and I'll get into that in a second. So you go in into this other entrance, and they have like the old style subway.
It's really beautiful.
It's really neat.
There's a
It,
nice
it is like
needle
going into a time machine. And, it has the old fixtures with what track is where. Here's a LadyAda in front of the car. This is the car that we got in, 5290. Here's the sign. The signs aren't lit up. They would just put a different piece of metal in there. Here's
Everything's made out of steel.
Yeah, here's the strap. And it's been going on for over 115 years. That's how old the train is. And then here's some of the things. Hi, I'm a low voltage train type. I was born in 1924 and operated in passenger service until 1969. And then this is another one. And LadyAda could probably explain this. This is the car that we were in. So they use low voltage, and these were safer for crews, and they would operate at 32 volts compared to the 600 volts now.
Yeah, so I imagine that the older trains were very simple. Obviously, there's no electronics. There was maybe a couple simple relays and switches that were manually controlled, and they didn't have a transformer or a separated power supply. So, if you had a relay switch on the control line and a wire got loose, you could get 600 volts into the control interface and zap you, which would be really unpleasant. 32 volts, on the other hand, you won't even feel it. So 32 volts, 24 volts is what most cars and trains run at for the interfacing. And then there's a separate high voltage section. So good idea that they separated them. Considering that the entire train is made out of steel, you definitely do not want it to accidentally get high voltageified.
And the
bad.
years it was built was interesting because, pandemic time, so the windows can open, there was fans. You definitely don't see subways made like this. It was solid. It sounded different when we went. I'm going to play a little bit of a video. But we went on the subway, and the old ads were in there, and the more things change, the more things don't. A lot of the ads were like, here's Campbell's soup, here's 3-in-1 oil, cleans as it polishes as it oils. And then this one was nice. This was a camera ad. The folding brownie, almost a Kodak.
Yeah.
So they're just like, look, it's not a Kodak, but it's like almost a Kodak.
But it's only $5.
Yeah. Food will win the war. We observe meatless days, wheatless days, porkless days. This is when there was a food shortage, when there was a world war. Can you imagine if people are asked to sacrifice for wars now? Maybe they would change their opinion about going to war if they couldn't get pork.
Well, now we all just eat corn all day anyways.
Yeah, and then lots of it was war bonds, by a Liberty bond. This I thought was kind of neat. They're like, look, Rheingold beer is brewed exactly as before because there's prohibition. So they're just like, it permits us to produce beer for conversion after reducing alcoholic contents to lawful limits. It allows us to sell as is. So they're just like, look, this is the beer you want. It's exactly as
It must
before.
have been just really weak, but tasted the same.
Yeah, this is exactly as before. Stop asking.
Yeah.
And then, so here's a little bit of a clip that we'll show, just to give you an idea of what it was like in there. And that's RetroTech. You can check out the full kind of video that we have in.
I think our favorite thing was the fan that was, like 6 inches above your head. If you stuck your hand up, it would just take off your wrist.
Yeah, they're basically, well, it's interesting because like it was a different world. I like progress and I wouldn't want to go back in time there, but you could just tell that things were just different on how safety was handled and the personal responsibility people had. It's like, that's a fan. You're not going to like jump up and like hit your head and blame us, right? Like, so it's just
And it's not one of those slow, like, home fans.
No.
That fan is like spinning death.
Yeah, it was. So anyways.
Kept
so
it nice and cool, though.
So we did that. And you could open up all the windows. And in our particular, car, actually all the cars, the rule was vaccination and mask because there's still COVID going on here. So I felt really safe. I thought that was great because, the windows were down. It was a beautiful day. The fans were going.
They did say if you stuck your hand out the window, you would lose your
Yeah,
hand.
the trains are a little bit bigger. So if you put your hands out, you'd lose a
in
hand.
the tunnels. It'll just...
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, anyways, good old times.
Yep. Okay.
But
next
a little
up.
bit of 3-in-1 oil, it'll ticker right out.
All right, hold on. Okay, jobs.adafruit.com is where people post their skills, or if they're a company and also someone looking for projects, they post up the jobs that are available. So Lightyear, Burbank, California is looking for a full-time engineering laboratory technician. So if that's you, if you're interested in it, check it out,
I
jobs.adafruit.com.
live near LA. Beautiful, beautiful summers, falls, winters, and springs.
It's Python on Homer time.
Yeah, Blinka.
Okay, so if you have not already, please go to adafruitdaily.com and sign up for the newsletter. It's adafruitdaily.com. We have a completely separate site because we never want anyone to think that we will send you a newsletter from Adafruit unless it has something you signed up for or something that you wanted regarding a product. So we did a separate site, and that gets delivered to your inbox every single week. We also have it on the web. And this week, you can check out the Python Developer Survey, see what people in the world of Python are doing. Python 3.1.1 is faster, so I think we might see some speed improvements across all Python things coming up. Some news in the world of the Python Software Foundation. They are adding some more people. We added a link. This is kind of interesting just because of the chip shortage. Google is doing some chip development stuff, specifically in the world of open source hardware. At least they're saying so. Make did a review of our Feather RP2040. Check that out. And then all the normal news, projects, and more that goes on and on forever. Lots of keyboard projects. Again, I think a lot of people are doing different types of input for their computers so they can kind of customize their experience because they're doing so many different things. In CircuitPython news, this is kind of the big deal for us right now. So PyLeap is out.
2.0.
And the neat thing about this is you start the app, it pairs with either Clue or with Bluefruit Express, and you're instantly able to look at the projects, and within one finger tap, the code is already on there, and now we support Clue. So each guide will say if it's compatible with which board, and it's the fastest, easiest way without a computer to get code onto a device. It's powerful. It's like when you first started using CircuitPython and you're like, whoa, I could just drag and drop a file onto the microcontroller. So this is like that, but for wireless. It's very fast.
Designed to make it a no-code, easy solution for especially people who want, or beginners, they just want to get started and they want to do mobile programming. PyLeap's a good start.
Yeah. Okay. And that's Python on Hardware News this week. Okay. All right, next up, let's do some open source hardware news. Big news, and I'm going to probably try to spend more time on this next week because the news just happened yesterday, I think. And we did a post.
It was yesterday, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been awake for a while, so it feels like it was 2 days ago, but it was actually yesterday. And I got the scoop. I think Adafruit was the first site to publicize it. So Arduino got $32 million in venture funding. And the two quotes, this is from Massimo and Fabio. So you're wondering, what are they doing with this money? Where are they going with it? What's going to happen? What is their focus? So here it is. This is from Massimo. Engineers in Gen Z and millennial generations grew up using Arduino boards and STEM programs around the world. And they've become accustomed to the accessibility, simplicity, and power of the company's open source hardware, software, and cloud services. Now they're taking those demands into the enterprise as they enter the labor force. Next up, the CEO, Fabio. The way Corporations solve contemporary challenges and identify new business opportunities, quickly evolving as a new generation of engineers move into the workforce in large numbers. With this investment, we're developing and delivering a new range of dedicated enterprise solutions to ignite this transformation. So it sounds like they're focusing on enterprise and enterprise solutions and corporate environments as their audience and community is now going into those places. So if they're a young kid, they used Arduino growing up, now they've got a jobby job and Arduino is staying with them. So we'll see what new products Arduino has. Having that funding is fantastic news for Arduino. Congratulations to the team. I'm looking forward to all the things that they're going to do. I have a request, which is open source got Arduino to where they're at. The company celebrates open source, and continues to celebrate open source. So this is a really good opportunity to show what does it mean to be an open source company and have $32 million of venture capital. Because there's been previous open source hardware companies that have gotten venture funding. Some have worked out, some of it didn't. But Arduino gets to set the standard, pretty much what it is. Because when people think of open source, they think of Arduino. My other request would be for any of the education boards that are open source hardware, may as well open source hardware certify them at OSHA, OSHWA. May as well, because that just means it's another signal that these are open source, they're going to be open source forever. And I think that would be kind of cool. And I think it would also reassure folks that all the things that were open source will stay open source. So anyways, congratulations to the entire Arduino team, everyone that's over there. I'm looking forward to all the stuff we're doing. And push this state of the art. When Arduino does great stuff, it makes all of us do great stuff. So looking forward to what's next. All right, I goofed on the guides this week, so I forgot to put in one of the images, LadyAda.
That's okay. We only really had one guide. So
yeah,
just,
but I have a clever way around it. So this is a graphic of the one I put the graphic of the one I want to show. So Isaac did this amazing guide of all of the HDMI stuff that you can possibly get, because there's so many HDMI things out there.
It's like USB-C. It's like it's so confusing.
Yeah. So I didn't put the graphic of the guides, but I have a way to do it, which is just to go to the screen thing here.
Good enough.
So yeah. So the only thing though is you'll have to just
that's fine.
remember which one is.
Well, actually, put in a guide like right after you posted. Yeah. So we have a new guide.
So what's on the big board this week? From
Drac, who's been doing so many cool retro guides. There's a new guide called on Box 86, which basically allows you to run x86 games and programs in emulation mode on Linux computers, which is great for the Raspberry Pi 4 and 400 if you have one, because it's nice and fast, so you can actually play. He shows like how to play like StarCraft on your Raspberry Pi, which is like super cool. You can also install Wine. A great way to take your Pi and play even more games, even if they're not natively compiled. We've also got that massive guide from Isaac, just epic multi-page guide on HDMI, the cable types, what does it mean when it says with Ethernet? How long can the cable be? What about extenders? What about passive versus active? How can you convert it to different file format or different connector formats? It's in there. Kattni also did a guide on the QT Py ESP32 Pico. I think we just got some more of those back in stock. It's an adorable little QT Py, but it's got an ESP32 chip in it, and a stomach QT port and an antenna. It's a perfect little board when you want a classic ESP32, but small. And we've also got, Liz did a guide on the PAM 8302. It's a little mono Class D amplifier. We've had these in the store for a while, but I realized we didn't have a guide. There's no code, but it's still useful to have like the pinouts and files and all that. We also have a guide update from Trevor and Kattni for PyLeap, as we mentioned. PyLeap 2.0 is out. It's a great time to try it. It's right now for iOS, but we are working on an Android version.
Okay. Next up, let's do some factory footage made right here in New York City. and it wouldn't be made in New York City factory footage unless you could see what's outside our window. So this is those are people, and those are people, and you could see the time lapse. This is the Disney building, and you could see them putting up the windows.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's like little figurines.
yeah, it's like those tilt shift things, and then you could see this from the other angle.
That is cool.
Yeah.
They're putting the skin on.
Yep.
Okay, it's happening.
All right, 3D printing time. Let's show this speed up. I actually like this. This is a really neat homage to some cool Aztec art style things.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's
And of course,
3D
we'll have
printed.
3 Hangouts come back next week.
Yeah, next week. And don't forget, Wednesdays, 3D Hangout with Noah and Pedro. Okay, LadyAda, it is time for Eye on MPI. This week's Eye on MPI is Worth Electronics, brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. Thank you so much, DigiKey. LadyAda, what is this week's newest, latest, greatest?
From Worth.
Yeah.
It's a high Worth Electronics. So I'm excited because we knew about these, but we can talk about them because, of course, they were secret. But Worth Electronic has come out with a series of feather wings. That's right. You know Adafruit because we've been making feathers. I actually looked it up. It was Maker Faire 2015 when we first showed off the first few feather designs that we came up with. And feather wings, we had the Feather 32U4s and the Feather ESP 66. And when we published Feather, we made the spec open source, basically. We published it and said, hey, anyone can use this. You can even use the word feather, featherwing, as long as you're compatible. Just don't be a jerk and say it is when it isn't. And what's neat is that because it's been so platform agnostic, you know, if you're going to get a Nucleo board, it has to come from ST. And if you get an Energia board, it's going to be an MSP 430. But with Feather, we support everybody from, you know, Maxim and Analog and Atmel and Microchip and TI and ST, you know, and Nuvoton and Espressif and Nordic and everybody. And so it was cool to see Worth jump in and making these accessory feather wings because, you know, Worth, I don't think they have a microcontroller family. And so this allows them to say, look, as long as you have something that's Arduino compatible and you have something that's feather compatible, you can use our feather wings. So there's a couple. So this is the sensor feather wing. Oh, and I wanted to just point out, this is the guide for Adafruit Feather. So check it out. We recently updated it because it lists a whole bunch of feathers as well as our awesome feather wing. It has a link to the awesome feather wing list, which is like a huge community of non-Adafruit made feathers. So the first feather wing, they made 4. The first one is the sensor feather wing, which I also physically have here. And it's got pressure, humidity, accelerometer, temperature, and humidity. It's also got quick stomach UT connectors on the bottom. It comes pre-soldered, ready to go, so you can just plug it into your favorite feather. It comes with all these sensors, and they all communicate over I2C, so you can pop this onto literally any feather because all of them have I2C connectivity to add a huge range of sensors from Worth. They also publish schematic in the datasheet, which is really handy, which has all the part numbers, and there's also the board files as well, though I didn't download them. But basically, they publish everything. They're like, look, we want you to use this as an eval board, and this is a working schematic that you can use. The next board, I thought this was interesting, can you enlarge it? I want to remember how to spell it. It's the Thione. This is a 2.4 gigahertz mesh network chip, so it's that little module at the end there. And this is what you would use if you don't necessarily want to have a low power mesh network. Wi-Fi isn't mesh. If you want to have a sensor node, maybe all these sensors, using that sensor feather wing, and then you want to distribute data around a mesh network, this is a meshing module that makes it really easy to use. Also comes in a featherwing format. And you communicate with the radio module over UART. So all of our feathers also have UART. And then there's an AT-ECC 608, which is a common encryption, private key storage device from Atmel Microchip. That communicates over I2C, and there's Arduino libraries for that. So between the two of these, you can basically have authenticated mesh networks that have unique identifiers. Also, the schematics are published for this, and this is basically designed to be a dev board to demonstrate the Thione mesh module. The next module, I thought this was kind of cool. So this is like this, it's called like a magic power feather wing. And this uses, Worth Electronics makes a lot of power modules. This is a step-down module. So you can see all those capacitors and connectors and inductor in there. And this basically will take up to, I think, 24 volts input and do buck conversion, bring it down to 5 volts and also 3 volts. So basically, if you're using your feather or feather wing in an industrial environment, like let's say one of those low voltage trains we were just talking about that run on 32 volts, you could wire this up and basically have a train sensor module, and you wouldn't have to worry about power supply, and it can empower the rest of the feather and the mesh network, what have you. Of course, you can also use LiPo battery, as all feathers do, but if you want to, we don't currently have a feather wing that will let you take 24 volts and bring it down to 5, so this is quite handy to do so. Also, the schematic is here, but you can see it's basically a power module with an alternate power input. And then lastly, there is a Calypso Wi-Fi feather wing. So this is a Wi-Fi module that you can use to connect to the internet securely. It uses UART, and there's an Arduino library. So it has AT-style command structure, which is really common. And they have Arduino libraries for it if you'd like. So this uses UART. So you can't really use this and the mesh wing at the same time. So kind of use one or the other, unless you have 2 UARTs and you can rewire it. For the most part, you just kind of pick one or the other. This is basically how it connects. Basically, just over UART, you send AT commands to connect, make a socket, connect, send data, open and close it. You can also act as a web browser. And then, of course, here's the documentation for how it's wired up and put together. So you can use the Calypso module. And then there is a video. We didn't show the video because it's like 15 minutes long. But there's a video on the Worth YouTube channel to check out, where they take a M0 feather and they plug it into the Wi-Fi and the sensor feather wing, and they basically make a fully interactive post and get web browser. So the web service is on the Feather M0, connects to Wi-Fi securely with the Calypso Wi-Fi weather wing, and then you can read the sensors and set the LEDs so it's read and write with a custom Wi-Fi interface. And if you want to use this, again, because Worth doesn't make the microcontroller board, you would use a Feather M0, a Feather M4, an NRF52840, maybe you want to add Bluetooth, and then check out their GitHub repo where they have code for the sensor, Wi-Fi, and mesh feather wings. They have example code for all of them, and they're in platform I/O specified format, but they should work just fine in Arduino as well. You just have to drag and drop that into your library folder.
Available at DigiKey.
They are in stock, all 4 of them, 4 different types, and I can show it on the overhead real fast. So, boom. Doing my Sharpie. So this is the sensor feather wing. So on the bottom, it's got all this documentation. Let me see if you can focus in on it. The humidity sensor has a nice cutout for temperature and humidity so that there's no self-heating. They come with stacking headers, which is great. because you can take your feather and pop it on top, especially if you have like a Wi-Fi feather. You won't have anything in the way of the antenna. Or you can have socket headers, and this plugs on top. And then there's a quick connector here. So if you've got your, some other sensor you want to connect, or maybe encryption module, whatever, over I2C, you just plug it in and you can extend that. Or of course you can use this to just connect to an existing, like a QT Py board, if you just want to use this as a sensor module breakout. So that's the Worth sensor feathering. There is a part number, but by the way, it's extremely long. I can't remember it, so just type in Worth featherwing, and you'll find all of them.
And that's how
On NPI.
Okay, before we do new products, don't forget the code is uncased. It'll make sense in a moment. And are you ready to kick off some new products?
I'm ready.
So first up,
I'm bopping.
yeah, it's fine.
Having a time.
We got Circuit Playground Expresses back in stock.
Back in stock.
So this is it. It's new to you if you've been waiting.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything we possibly can, and then the code tonight was uncased, and the reason is because we've wanted to have something like this for a while, and there isn't a USB drive that everyone agrees on. That's like, oh, here's the open source one, or here's the one that's low cost, or here's the size, or whatever. So what we decided to do is just find kind of the best one that has the best price, and went through our testing process.
I did the test where I test the speed, and of course
Yeah.
I test the.
And so
I test that it's actually 2 gigabytes.
the idea with this is really low cost and a standard size that you can kind of embed inside of like a 3D printed object, or make something special.
It's uncased.
That it's uncased. You provide the case. So let's go to the overhead.
Okay, so here it is, uncased. There's a little indicator LED. This is the control chip, which you can Google to find the part, and then this is of course the flash memory. Another thing that this could be useful for is if you're feeling like it, you could hot air this off BJ on a separate flash chip if you wanted to like rescue an existing USB key that had like a bad controller.
Yeah.
It just has a USB-A, but the thing about it is it's uncased. You want to 3D print, you want to mold, you want to do something funky.
Yeah.
This is kind
You
of...
put a lump of clay on that, let it dry, and now you've got a very low cost gift. Here's a pet rock.
Pet
And
rock.
on the pet rock is,
Has memory.
some files.
You can also, of course, remove the the USB connector and solder it directly to your single board computer as like it's like 2 gig of memory, just solder right on of flash memory. So I thought it would be kind of cool to stock these. I know Pedro will do a 3D model as soon as they're back from holiday. We'll probably 3D print some cool enclosures for this, and
Yeah.
then people can take that model and make their own.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like really neat things that people print out, like they're fans of Star Wars. And speaking of 3D printed Yoda heads, and you could put like a little slot in it and then just slide this in there, and you could put something on there, like the files that it was printed with, the STL file. You could put photos on it and maybe a message to someone and give it as a gift. So I thought this was really neat, and it's
Yeah.
it's cheap enough where it just doesn't matter.
Okay, so this is the uncased
Yeah.
2 gig drive.
Speaking of USB,
Speaking of USB, we have a couple of USB cables. This is a funky one. So we have a 9 volt and a 12 volt boost converter cable that runs off of USB. And I saw somebody was like, can you get one that has both? And I'm like, yeah, there's one that has both. So this is a 9 volt or 12 volt. And it's been a while since I tested this sample, but I think it also displays the current. Let's go to the overhead real fast. So it doesn't do data, of course, it just does power. And this shows the voltage, so if I shorted this, it would say 0 volts. And I think on the product page, it's like 1 amp at 9 volts and about 750 milliamps at 12 volts. And then you get a standard 5.5 millimeter, 2.1 millimeter DC jack that you can use to plug into, any device with positive tip and negative ring on here. So it's a little bit more expensive than the individual 9 or 12, but that's because it's combo.
Okay. All right, next up. So just before we get to the other group of USB things, because I wanted to separate them out so there was no confusion.
Yeah.
What about these?
Okay, so we've already got these, and they look so similar to what we've already got. And you're like, what is this? Why? How is this different than the MyFair tag? This is the NTAG 203. So we've stocked the MyFair Classic tags for a very long time, and they're great and everything. But modern phones don't support MyFair Classic because it's an old, slightly less secure RFID tag format. And this is NTAG 203, which is also known as like MyFair, not Classic, it's like MyFair Express or something. So these are more secure. They have a longer ID key. They hold 144 bytes of data. You can still use them for all sorts of RFID purposes, but more phones and tablets are going to support these chips in the MyFair Classics. So we carry the MyFair Classics for when people have old technology, but if you have a choice, we recommend the NTAG 203s instead. They're more modern. They'll be supported for a lot longer.
Okay, now there's a bunch of different types, so I just put one picture to explain what these were.
Yeah. So we have 4 different cables that all look very similar.
Yeah.
And these are USB PD cables, and they're kind of interesting. So yeah, let's go just look at this. On one end is a USB-C connector, and the USB-C connector will plug into a USB power delivery wall wart. So these are wall warts that you plug to the wall, and they have a USB port inside of them. And if you have like a Mac laptop or a really modern laptop, this will look familiar. And then you plug in the USB-C into the wall adapter, and then there's a little chip inside the cable. It's like really small. And what it does is it tells the adapter, hey, I want you to go into 9-volt boost mode or converter mode, or 12 volt or 15 volt or 20 volt. And the output will be 9, 12, 15, or 20 volts based on what the PD converter can give you. So let me show you the PD converter so you know what I'm talking about, because this is not actually a boost or buck converter.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, a standard, it's like a laptop charger. It looks very familiar. It's not official Apple, but it's very similar looking. So the travel charger gets, basically, 110 or 200 volts in, and then it says output. And you see here it says 5 volts at 3 amps, 9 volts at 3 amps, 12 volts at 3 amps, 15 volts at 3 amps, or 20 volts at 3.25 amps. So this is a special kind of USB-C converter that can switch what the output is based on what the cable says. So for example, if I plugged in this cable, which says 20 volts, you can kind of see it. It's not very, let me see if I can turn on the light, maybe that'll help. Kind of barely, you can kind of see it. It says 20 volts on it. Then when this is plugged into here, this will output 20 volts. However, if this wall adapter doesn't say that it can provide 20 volts, it's not going to work. So you have to make sure that whatever you want on this cable end, 20 volts, or this one says, 9 volts, or I have a 12 volt or 15, you have to make sure that it appears on this list, because this doesn't do any conversion. All it does is like convincing, right? It'll tell the adapter what it wants on the output, but it will not do any power conversion for you. So if it doesn't have 9 volt, you'll just get 5 volts out instead, or you might not get anything depending on how the adapter handles PD. So that said, as long as you're aware of that, it's really handy, because instead of having 20 adapters, you have one adapter, and then you have a different cable for every product.
Yeah.
You can just swap out the cable based on your needs.
That's smart.
And you'll just get the exact voltage you want. And the output here is 5.5 millimeter outer diameter, 2.5/2.1 inner. And the reason it's 2.5 and 2.1 is the hole is 2.5, but you can see there's little springy clips. So it works with both 2.5 and 2.1 millimeter. And these cables are really chunky. They'll handle up to 5 amps of output, as they have the eMark chip on them. It's a little bit more expensive, but the eMark means you can charge a laptop. However, just a reminder, because this travel charger doesn't give you 5 amps, you're not going to get 5 amps. it'll max out at 3 amps. After 3 amps, it'll not provide any more current. So just keep that in mind. Again, this is not a converter cable, it's a convincer cable. It'll convince the travel charger to do what it already does.
Okay, cool. Okay, next up, we have lots and lots and lots of
Cats.
the most amazing, beautiful LEDs.
Yes.
So these are in the store. These are unique Adafruit, and this is from
We
a
may
friend
not
of
have
ours.
chips, but we do have cats.
Yeah, and so these are them lit up. We have rainbow ones, and just to give you an idea of how big they are LED size.
They're LED size.
So they come in different packs. These are made here in the USA. Mark DeVink, who is a friend of the company, is a designer, artist, and more. I worked with Mark at Make Magazine, and we're pleased to support a local artist
Oh, here's my
and
pencil.
have all of these. And there's lots of different types.
Okay.
I like the blue cat.
There's a blue cat's cool, but let's show the RGB cat first.
Yeah, because that has lots of different
And the
things.
succulent's really cool too.
Yeah,
the succulent's
so-
kind of a secret winner.
I thought I would just show all these, and then you could do the overhead.
yeah.
And so that's the cat, and then we have the succulent. Succulent's really nice because you can imagine this being used for lots of cool projects because it could be lots of different
I
light
swear,
up
it's just
plant
like it
things.
actually looks better than I thought. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
it really does look.
And
decent.
then it wouldn't be Adafruit without a skull.
yes.
So this is a red skull, and these are going pretty fast. But this is
Go.
what they look like. They're beautiful, and if you want to up your LED game, so let's take a look at them.
Okay. So this one, I'm just lighting these up with a 3-volt coin cell. So this one is the RGB cat. So you see a cat and you see the embedded LED. Note that you don't get RGB LEDs. It's one of those. It's called like a flashing light LED. So it changes color. You see from like red to green to blue. So it slowly goes through all the colors. But it's like, you just see toys and stuff that often have, or necklaces or jewelry that have these little LEDs. So it's a way to add rainbowy color without any controller. So that's the RGB LED. And then you wanted to see the blue kitty.
Yeah, well, this is what it looks like here.
Okay.
But then, we like showing real live demos,
Yeah.
and we have all these really
Yeah.
nice photos we took. But
So this is the blue kitty. It's a nice little kitty. You can see from different sizes. So again, I'm just lighting up with a coin cell, but you
Yeah.
can see it's so nice. Pet the cat. And then so it's the blue kitty. And then let me show the red skull.
yeah, and
It's
here's the
also-
photo that we took, and then we'll show you
Okay.
live.
Red skull. You also have the white skulls. So
Yeah.
red skull. Okay. And then finally, last but not least, is the green succulent, which I think is kind of the coolest one.
Yeah, these are cool.
Yeah, I think it's because it's like, the center is lit up, but then all the little leaves
Yeah.
are glowing. So this is, it looks, it's hard to show on the overhead, of course, but in person, it just looks like a beautiful glowing cactus.
Yeah. Okay, and then the star of the show tonight, besides you, Lady Ada, our community, our customers, our team, and this blue cat is
Is the Feather TFT ESP32 S3. We have a much loved ESP32 S2 TFT. Swap out the module with the new S3 4 megabyte flash, 2 megabyte PSRAM, and boom, you've got a lovely 2-core, 240 megahertz Tensilica chip with 4 megabytes of flash, 2 megabytes of PSRAM. It's got Wi-Fi and it's got Bluetooth, and we've got that TFT Stomach QT port, battery powerable, battery monitor built in, low power capable. You can turn off the I2C port even. It's just altogether a wonderful little board, and I think it's going to be super fun and powerful, especially for people who want Bluetooth, or they need 2 cores because you get, of course, the extra power. So here's just a quick Arduino demo running. Of course, it's Feather compatible. It's got all the pins you'd expect, so you can use it with your first sensor featherwing if you'd like. You've got the reset button and boot button, STEMMA QT port that's vertical style. So if you want to plug in, hold on, always get it in backwards. Hold on. I want to line it up. Boom. You can plug in more sensors, and you'll notice as I plug in this sensor, it shows up on the I2C scan. So it disappeared, and then it reappears. Battery monitoring using the LC709203, which is a really nice low-power battery monitor. We use that because the ESP32 doesn't have a very linear ADC, so having external sensor do it is a good idea. It's a little module with built-in antenna, so you get really good Wi-Fi and Bluetooth support. And I think this will be great for use with Arduino or CircuitPython, especially that 2 megabytes of PSRAM makes it a very good CircuitPython board. You have a lot of memory, and it means that you can get Wi-Fi data, do a lot of JSON parsing, control LED matrices, control NeoPixels, control TFT displays. The S3 is very powerful, and a lot of cool peripherals that you're going to see coming out for it.
And that is new products. Okay, don't forget the code is uncased. 10% off the Adafruit store all the way up to 11:59 p.m. You also get free stuff. We're going to do some questions over in Discord, but we're going to do top secret while you load up your questions. I have some already that folks typed in, but don't forget adafruit.it/discord. That is the only place where we do the questions.
Go there.
So let's do some top secret, and then we'll meet you
Yeah.
over in the chat in a moment and answer some questions. So this week's top secret, we have some S3s off the line, so it's, you just saw them debuted, so just imagine yourself like a day ago or so. And then we'll show a couple boards. So here's the first two videos, and then see you on the other side. Okay, LadyAda, what is this?
This is a still toasty PCB panel that just came off the oven right here. This is for the Feather TFT ESP32 S3. We've got this awesome TFT Feather in the S2 format, but this time we've made it, and you can see it's got the S3 Mini, the R4 N2, which means it's got PSRAM, 4 megabytes of flash. So we're going to put, one of them is missing because we're going to do the first article inspection. But if you loved our Feather ESP32 S2 TFT Feather, you're going to really like this one because it's got twice as many cores, more SRAM, it's got Bluetooth. So a nice little upgrade. Coming to the Adafruit store real soon now.
All right, LadyAda, what is this?
Hey, I'm just doing a quick demo for a new product. This is the RCWL1601. This is an ultrasonic sonar distance sensor. What's interesting about this one is in I2C mode. So it does have a mode where you can query it over I2C. I've got some resistors here because it's not built-in pull-ups. And then I've got it plotting out the distance. You can put my hand up and down to change the output. It does work. I will say one thing about this. It doesn't seem to like to share the I2C bus, but there's some situations where you don't want to use like the pin trigger pulse style of ultrasonic sonar sensor. You don't want the UART style. Maybe you don't have a PWM input. You have I2C, and as long as you're cool with just not having anything else on that same bus, like in this case, I've got this OLED on a different bus, seems to work just fine.
Okay, and you published some boards. By published, I mean emailed it to me so I can post online later, so it will be published. So this really is top secret. What is this?
This is an adapter. A lot of people like our Pi Zero compatible spy cameras, and they want to use them on a classic Raspberry Pi, which doesn't have the 22-pin high-pitch CSI DSI connector. Instead, it has the lower pitch, 1 millimeter pitch, 15-pin connector. And Raspberry Pi used to create an adapter board that they sold that was used with the compute module I/O boards that did this conversion, and they no longer sell it. So I just quickly whipped up this little adapter based on the schematics they published. Even though it says DSI, it's actually, this is the CSI adapter only. It's the camera connector. The display connector would be different, but I don't think anything uses the 22-pin connector for DSI. So basically it would let you use Pi Zero cameras with a classic Raspberry Pi.
Okay, and what's this?
And then someone asked for a STEMMA QT hub. So this is just a STEMMA QT size board, 0.7 by 1 inch, which is our standard STEMMA QT board size, but it has 5 vertical STEMMA QT connectors on it. And so you could if you have non-chaining I2C, like you're using Grove cables or something, or you're just do DIY I2C, you can use this to basically share the I2C ports.
And that's top secret. Okay, we're going to jump right to questions. I have some lined up. Here we go. Recently, my company upgraded security. Good thing. But now thumb drives without security keys are no longer allowed. Also a good thing. But that means anything that has USB on it that enumerates, aka runs CircuitPython, won't run. My workaround is to code off a Raspberry Pi, which is also technically programmed from home for now, because they probably can't bring it in. This works, but once I'm gone, if that day ever arrives, do you have any advice on how to deal with this, especially with newer engineers? Nearly requiring Arduinos to get their job done, aka why would I do that in LabVIEW when I could do it with an Arduino? I won't hear your answer until I get back from picking up my kids from Scouts. So
with CircuitPython, you can turn off the mass storage interface. We have a little tutorial on how to do that. That means that you'll have to upload code via the REPL, which you can do. Basically, instead of using mass storage support, you would turn off mass storage and then turn on disk writability. And then I think you can actually still use something like AMPI. I don't see why it wouldn't work. It basically creates a file in Python, and then you would write to it. So I think you could use Thonny or AMPI. It's not going to be as good of an experience, but I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
The alternative is also just to ask the administrator to pop open that restriction for USB VID PID that's associated with a CircuitPython board.
So we're constantly looking at our security policies as well. So I think about stuff like this for organizations that have lockdown USB stuff, because schools don't do that yet. Maybe one day they will. Everything's on the cloud, blah, blah, blah. But what I've learned is everything is a collaboration with the IT security department. So even if USB turns off and you're thinking that you're going to use maybe Arduino only, they'll have to get permission to install that software.
Yeah, that driver doesn't come either.
So,
you have to install that by hand.
Yeah, and when someone Googles for Arduino software, there's lots of different places where they might download it from. So you're going to want to do some type of security audit to make sure whatever is getting downloaded. So I think it's a combination of two things. The VID PID lockdown is doable, possible. That's what I would suggest. Is that way you could still have the best possible experience. It's an authorized, USB drive, and then the other one is try turning off the mass storage. We have that as a feature for CircuitPython. And then, your clean room idea of what you're doing now is programming, things on Raspberry Pi at home is okay. You also might want to talk to the IT folks there and say, hey, like, if I am able to mount the CircuitPython drives across the network on a secure computer that you authorize. So you could plug it in and then those drives are mounted and they can access it across the network. There's ways to do it where that one is, considered safe. Okay, next up. When do you see the Pi shortage ending? I don't think, and
There's
we
no
don't
ending.
think it's going to ever end.
You should not assume there's any end.
I think this is kind of the way our lives are going to be for a very long time, where you can't just order something that shows up the next day. And that goes for a lot of things. And then, are there any decent low-cost indoor positioning sensor methods?
There's ultra wideband, but it's not inexpensive. Basically, no. Indoor positioning is extraordinarily hard. It's a very, very hard technical problem. Most people don't realize how hard it is because outdoor there's GPS, and GPS is very cheap. But GPS isn't, even if you did work indoors, it wouldn't be precise enough. And also, of course, it doesn't work indoors.
Yeah.
So, there really isn't anything other than ultra wideband.
Okay. Do you have an in with the Wittern folks? I love their USB analyzers, particularly the U3. It's pretty amazing, and would love to see someone in the US carry. It's the people I recommend don't have to go to AliExpress, and they link to them. Do you ever hear these?
We buy enough stuff when we contact a company that they do talk to us, so I can actually get samples, because I'm like, hey, when I order, I'm going to be ordering like 1,000 cables from you.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be able to get those things. I'll ask them for samples and check them out.
Okay. There's a new agreement on smart home control called Matter. Have you considered becoming a member? And in general, can you share what involvement would inquire? Just hoping a maker like Adafruit would contribute to what is
we
important
just
for
did
makers.
Thread, and now we're already on to Matter.
So
huh?
here's
never ends.
here's what we would like to do. So usually we don't get invited to those type of groups because we have the Internet of Things Bill of Rights, and if someone Googles us, they're like, oh, like, home control, it allows voice storage across the cloud. By the way, I didn't get a chance to write about this, but Sonos has a non-cloud, non-voice storage speaker. And the advertisement for it is like privacy first. I think that's going to be a trend that we see. We always think that if something can listen to you, it should have a mute button or a physical off button.
Yeah.
Amazon added that to some of their new Alexas. The Alexa Show has a very large physical button that you move now that it's cameras off, mute is on, which is an interesting thing because it's the opposite. Mute is on isn't the same. That doesn't mean the sound's on. It means the sound's off. That's
I'm sure they use some logo that makes
yeah.
it clear.
Anyways, so that's kind of cool. So we would like to consider doing something like that, but usually what we like to do is like, hey, if it's collecting data, that should be downloadable by the user. So we kind of come in with user rights and baggage. So we don't get invited to these parties, but we'd like to look into it. We'll see. So if we do, I'll let you know. Any news on the ESP32 S3 BLE HID?
Best bet is to ask Espresso for that. I don't have any
Okay.
control or updates beyond what they announce.
All right. And I think people like the ESP. Yep. They like the LEDs. Can you do wireless circuit Python integrate with Jupyter? Would like to be able to use that as a REPL wrapper.
Yes, eventually. I think we're working on a Webflow and web workflow, and that you would probably be able to do with Jupyter. Although we're kind of targeting just using like a web browser to start.
Okay. Do you see the Adafruit ESP32 S3 TFT working with the M1 Mac without too much frustration since it has native USB support? Any insight? Adafruit.
I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, we haven't had any issues with M1 Macs for USB
We're
serial.
all using M1 Macs for testing, and so far so good because it's super fast, and I really like my M1 Mac. And
I think it should work just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't heard of any issue. It uses the built-in CDC drivers. There's no custom driver, and
Yeah.
the WCH chip drivers also work fine on a Mac. I mean, you have to turn on allow me to install non-official software, but once you do
Yeah.
that, it works fine.
I found that the thing that starts to come up with all these things that are USB that can be complicated is sometimes people go through a hub. So they have a hub and they put all the USB stuff in that. That's when things can kind of get a little complicated. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Them's the questions.
Yay!
All right.
We had a lot of questions.
Thanks, folks. So that's our show for tonight. We're out of here. Thanks so much, everyone. Don't forget the code is uncased.
This is my hands doing 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. Ding, 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 ba-ding.
Yeah.
9.
Special thanks to Zay behind the scenes here at Adafruit in our Slack channel, taking care of all the customers and more. Special thanks to the community, all of our Adafruit team, our customers. Thanks for supporting us during these ups and downs and topsy-turvy times. We very much appreciate it, and we will continue to do good, be open source, share. The light of our candle, if we light other candles, doesn't diminish our light and flame. I think about that phrase sometimes. So it's always good to see other people show and share stuff and then see other people show and share and encourage it, because that is how civilization was built and can continue to thrive, sharing and uplifting one another. So we'll see everybody next week. Here is, this has been an Adafruit production. Here is your moment of Zener.
Good night, everybody.